All right, well, welcome everybody, and thanks for coming and with a packed house here. It's a little small room, but we're going to make the best of it, and hopefully it's entertaining enough that nobody realizes that we're kind of packed in here. The session, as you all know, is up close and personal, and it's putting a face to your data, basically storytelling with research. And to introduce who we all are, I'm joined here by Seth Diamond, who is the EVP of Catapult, the EVP of Insights. And if you don't know, Catapult is one of the leading marketing services agencies. They believe the shopper is always on and transform intelligence into creative engagement through the art of conversion. I'm Tom DeServo, I'm the managing partner of Snippies, and I'm joined here by my partner in crime, Amy Finnerty, who is the president of Snippies. And if you don't know who Snippies is, we, for the last decade, have been making videos that bring the consumer to life, bring insights to life. And we've been doing that for both brands and agencies. We're here today to talk about storytelling and data and insights, and those are all kind of big buzzwords within the industry, storytelling. We're talking about video and why it's important to use video. Since it's a research crowd, I figured I'd start with some interesting graphs and pie charts. Internal communication professionals say that video is essential to use in your internal communications. I think that sometimes gets lost in research, in the sense we don't think about that necessarily all the time, that it is so important. But the professionals in that space, in communication, say that it really is vital, and you really do need to be incorporating it into everything that you're doing. And the reason why that is clearly demonstrated here in terms of how people retain information. I mean, we retain about 18% of what we receive in a spoken word. If you just show visuals, you're up a little bit, over 20%. And then if you can combine the two and really engage, your retention gets up to over 80%. Taking it further into video and how that plays into it, when you're talking about storytelling and you're talking about research, it's very important to get a lot of information in to a very short amount of time. People have very short attention spans. So when you're communicating with them, how do you get to say all that in a very short amount of time? All the things that you want to convey. And video lends itself very well to this. My very good friend, Dr. James McQueevy at Forrester, came up with this stat, and he's my best friend now because he came up with this stat, which really helps support everything that I talk about. So 1 minute of video is equal to about 1.8 million words. Now, that says volumes about how important it is that everything that you're showing is saying something. The background is saying something. What the person is wearing is saying something. Their facial expression is saying something. And you just can't convey that much information in a written report. It's impossible. You'd be up there for 3 days in what you can accomplish in one video. So I'm going to kick it over to Seth here, who's going to kind of go into how this works from the agency side. I mean, Snippies is very much a production company. We try to assist our clients whenever we can in terms of crafting their story and telling their story. We asked Seth to join us because he can tell us from the agency side in terms of how these things are used and the effect that they can have when they're actually used.
So it's a great segue, thanks Tom. What I'm going to kick things off with is a video to kind of show you a little bit of a different example of how we've used video in order to bring things to life internally for the agency.
Facial hair and body are important to the whole package, the whole, I guess, impression.
It's just that, you know, I've got facial hair, so why not play with it?
I try to trim it just a little bit different, kind of keep it original.
Facial hair doesn't really grow in too often, so like when it comes in, I like try to keep it and savor it.
You know, I have sort of a baby face, so it gives me the ruggedness, my facial hair.
I had an ex-girlfriend once tell me that I looked nicer when I had a beard, so I just sort of kept with it, just so I looked mean most of the time.
I'm a big guy and I have a little bit of a double chin, so I like to keep this part right here so it hides it a little bit.
People know me by my beard now. They know that I like to do outdoor types things. It makes me feel like I'm, you know, like I walk into a room and everyone immediately thinks, wow, that guy can grow a big beard. More power.
You get your powers from your facial hair.
Too hairy looks like a monkey, especially if you have hair underneath your underarms.
It's a pretty important thing to keep my personal style, so I like to shave my head.
It's integral to who I am, I guess. I don't leave home without it.
I like to change it up. You know, it gives it a different look. It's kind of fun. It makes you feel different.
I used to have really long hair, and it was just super hot, and I was drunk, and I told my buddy to give me a mohawk, and he did it sideways, so I ended up having to shave the whole thing.
It's like reinventing yourself. You don't want to look all your life the same.
Every 6 months or so, I do something pretty drastic, whether that's cutting my hair very, very short and then growing it out very, very long, shaving my beard completely and then growing it back out.
I switch it up and I do different things. If I have a full beard and it's getting too long and I don't want to trim it up, then I shave a goatee, and then when I get sick of that, I'll shave it all off.
It's good to change things every once in a while. Like, I'm growing my hair back out. It's been short for a couple of years, so it's good to change.
You know, it's all an experiment. It's just like, as long as you don't look super silly.
I love that, because what if I now said, that's how we briefed our creative team to come up with ideas? And rather than the standard 2 to 3 page brief form, which is all, again, in written language, it goes back to the chart that Tom showed. It's not just about how we present to our clients, it's about how we engage with our teams internally and really bring it to life for them. So in that 2-minute video, we were able to inspire the creative team with a dozen different directions in which they could start thinking about how do we bring programs to life. You heard some really rich things come out from these guys as they were talking to us. Grooming is an area that I can play in my own sandbox. You know, there's just some really fascinating areas to explore there. I groom to change who I am. What better than to change what I look like to be an immediate change of who I am? I groom to hide the bad stuff. To me, that was the most powerful one I heard of all of them. You're not going to get that from a very standard kind of online interview or focus group situation. You had to allow for that safety zone for those kinds of things to come out. Changing how I look is fun and allows me to feel different. There's a play aspect. So some terrific directions we were able to give our creative team, which really made a huge difference in the breadth of solutions we were able to bring back to our client and think about how do we deliver really insight-informed and insight-inspired work that really runs quite seamlessly for them. You also happen to think about our creative team is typically a lot of millennials. And how do millennials engage really with content? It's really through video, it's through social. So what better way to bring the briefing to life than to really give the consumer their voice?
So that kind of leads me to my next segment, which is understanding your client's goals, understanding their strategy. And there are key elements in making a successful video that we pared this down to, which is variety, quality, and packaging. And Seth, I have to say, it's really great to understand this outcome, because I don't think we ever got the results of how successful this campaign was for you all. So.
No, and it was hugely successful in that route of, again, getting that breadth. I think for us on the agency side, sometimes we land with one great idea and then 2 other ideas that we throw in just because. We had more than a wealth of information or options to choose from, and we know that any client we work with really appreciates and values when you can come forward with smart ranges of creative.
So when you think of variety, it can be expressed in many ways. And it's in the types of people being interviewed. As we see, these were people that were grooming enthusiasts. And it's also the viewpoints being communicated. We heard a wide variety of viewpoints, which, sometimes our clients want us to slant the information we're gathering, and sometimes it's like, hey, go out there and let's see what the heck people are saying. One point in looking at this again with Seth, I said, these were great people, but wouldn't they be more awesome if we had them in front of barbershops or styling locations to put them in context? And then the number of interviews gathered. You always want to go for as many interviews as possible. We might go for 12 or 15 interviews per market and shoot in 3 markets, but maybe there'll be 8 to 10 interviews that are really standouts. So you really want to go for a large number when possible. Otherwise,
as much as we'll allow, really. I mean, and it's all about choices in the end, and you kind of see how important it is to have colorful characters that really do bring your story to life. Every single person you talk to on the street is not going to have that kind of personality. They're not going to give that kind of great interview. So, those numbers and making sure that you do have strength in numbers and choices in the end is really going to help drive your point home and keep that story moving.
And we found in a lot of our experiences that one location really matters. So to that extent around the, going into the barber shops as opposed to just on the street would have been a great build had we thought about it at that time.
I know.
So there we get an option to do that. But when we're involved in a lot of shopper marketing or shopper insight kind of work, At the end of the day, the retailer wants to see that you've spoken directly with their shopper in some way, shape, or form. And so it makes a ton of sense for us to be providing some of those cues of making sure we find those consumers and shoppers right near those respective locations that they're shopping at. Again, it's a great cue to say, we're paying attention to what you need and what it is you're looking for, and it helps reinforce the validity of the story.
And when we first started Snippies, we often called our video journalists guerrilla video journalists because, you know, it sounds easy to do shop-alongs or go, you know, shoot in front of a particular location, but you really are sometimes taking your life in your hands. And we have been tasked with some great challenges, and for the most part, we've done it. We have been thrown off numerous lots and out of locations, and police have been called and thrown out of banks, and you know, to kind of name a few. We once had a crew in Los Angeles who was like mugged. They tried to take his camera, but luckily he got out of there with his camera, so that's but I'm sure you guys realize this, you can have storytelling, but if you don't have great quality in your storytelling, who's going to listen? And an important fact is technical quality and content quality. And with technical quality, you can have great audio and you can have great video, but if you don't have great audio and video together, you can't use those sound bites without something really entertaining to look at, and you can't look at something if you can't hear it. So, you know, we've been asked sometimes by our clients, oh, you know, there's a great fountain in this location and there's a lot of foot traffic. Well, you can't conduct an interview with a constant fountain running by you, or in crazy street noise.
Or in one mic, as many of you use in focus group facilities that have, you know, kind of one mic in the center of the room, and everything's really echoey and it's really hard to hear, and the insights are there, but they just don't present very well.
And that's something we see a lot, is that as researchers, we tend to focus a lot more on the content quality than the technical quality. And now that you think of today's world where we're telling our kids, watch what you put on Facebook, it's going to live there for a really long time. Well, as researchers, we need to be as proud of the technical quality that we're delivering the content as we are in the content itself, because it is going to live out there for a really long time. You want to make sure it's reflecting well on what you have to say.
And finally, packaging is key, and we work very closely with our clients on their overall packaging, their style guide. We work hard on our creative execution. We want to, you know, we gather tons of interviews and insights, and then we weave our story arcs. And sometimes there's 3 story arcs, sometimes there's 1 story arc, but we really work hard on that story arc. It's difficult when you're dealing with real people's responses. There's a real art to that story arc. And you'll see in an upcoming video, statistics. We know statistics are extremely important to researchers, and it's how we're using those statistics graphically to further drive home any point you might have. Again, color, more and more people are using animation as well, along with, you know, real people. We've been asked to do a lot of animation lately. And then, of course, your fonts, your text, what are those things that really polish your package? And you can never underestimate music and the power of music. And when we started doing these videos 12 years ago, we didn't have music beds, and I begged the founder to let me add some music, because, you know, you can make people laugh, you can make them cry. It really sets the tone and the mood for your video. And, you know, we often struggle with finding that right piece. And while these are just market research pieces, and sometimes they're sizzle reels, we work really hard at trying to find that music. And sometimes our clients have a different idea of what that music should be, but we have to work and collaborate to make sure that we find that perfect music, because honestly, I think it makes all of our videos.
It does. I mean, it's, as Seth has been saying, I mean, it's kind of the time that we're in. We're used to getting our information in a certain way, and it's a polished way. It's a produced way. That's how we get our news. That's how we get a lot of our entertainment. And so it makes sense, if you're really looking to reach an audience and make an impact, that you're doing the same types of things in your own presentations. And again, you know, these are things just to think about in terms of storytelling. It doesn't mean that these things have to cost $1 million to produce something that's effective and polished looking. It's really just about thought and what you put into it that you'll get a lot back out.
We actually have a lot of these conversations around the packaging now up front at the beginning of our projects, because we want to be talking about, for instance, if we're going after millennials, we may want a very multi-linear kind of story or a non-linear kind of story. If we think our audience is going to be boomers, we'll want much more of a linear storyline to make sure that the understanding is there, both of how we know them as well as how they like to receive information. And we'll adjust the music as well. A lot of our clients like to see from us a number of things. One is that you know them and their brands. 2, that you know the consumer or shopper. And 3, that you can pull it all together in a way that connects not just the human side of things, but to Tom's point, connects the statistics in with the overall story. So we've now started to have a lot of those conversations up front, so we'll make sure we're getting the right materials as we're working on the project, rather than conducting the research and then saying, oh, let's make a video out of it.
Yeah.
That tends to not work as well for us.
And I want to just say, our clients are fortunately just beginning to share their strategy, because for a long time we were in the dark. And we'd say, well, do you have a style guide, and what's your strategy? And sometimes they want to share it, and sometimes they don't, and we'll do our best. But working.
Well, sometimes they just didn't have it. I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes
that's
it just didn't exist, because it's not always the first thing you think about when you're doing your research presentation. I have to have a style guide. Like, what's that? I mean, I have these conversations all the time. It's not that they don't want to share or they can't share. They just don't even have one. And I mean, I think we're getting to a point though where people are thinking more about that, and creating that kind of stuff is not as difficult as it once was. So much stuff lives online. You can get a good idea, even for your own company, of what your branding is like and everything like that, if you haven't done one of these, just from what's on the website.
So we're about to show you a video that encompasses the whole package, if you will, from a research perspective. We've done these studies internationally for about, is this our 7th or 8th we're on right now? We're on our 8th study. And we didn't show you the whole entire video, but there's enough to give you a sense of our reach and our depth and our breadth and our package.
How everything comes together, basically. Like, basically this video kind of incorporates everything. It's a variety of locations. It's got some graphics in there. It's very well polished. It's got music that moves it along. So it kind of incorporates everything we're talking about.
I always have my laptop out when I'm watching TV. It's kind of, I call us the multitasking generation.
Tenho sempre o computador ligado, eu estou no iPad, eu estou no iPhone, eu estou em tudo simultaneamente. Na realidade, eu acho que eu não foco em uma coisa, eu foco em 3, 4 ao mesmo tempo.
Sometimes it's the iPad mood, sometimes it's the iPhone mood.
有陣時我哋睇電視嘅時候咧，見到一啲有趣嘅話題，咁我好想同我突然間醒起有個朋友講嘅時候，我就會可能攞佢電話 WhatsApp 佢一下。
睇緊電視，如果賣廣告嘅時間咧，我會可能睇到個廣告啊，呢個產品介紹得唔錯喎，我都會用呢啲時間即刻上網去 check 下，究竟佢介紹嘅嘢啱唔啱我用，可能會即刻買添。
There was a dress I was looking at the other day, and then suddenly, when I was opening my mail this morning, the adverts around the page, there was that dress again saying, oh, here it is, this is how much it is. If there was a special offer attached to something that I'd been particularly looking at, then maybe it would work.
Irritant als er reclames tussen websites doorkomen en zo van dingen waar ik misschien 1 keer op ben geweest en die dan heel groot en telkens weer te zien zijn.
有唔同類型做緊 promotion 啊，做緊啲 campaign 嘅message send 翻俾我，都唔會覺得佢滋擾嘅。譬如我經過海港城，我突然間見到 Faces 嗰度原來有好多唔同類型嘅化妝品做緊特價喎，咁可能我都會收到個 message 嘅時候，可能會更加即係可能都會 encourage 到我過去嘅。
I feel the need to unplug pretty much every waking hour of every single day.
I've had my iPhone for like a year now. I don't think I've ever turned it off. Like, not once.
If I didn't have internet, boy, I'd be freaking out.
As you mentioned, that was a portion of a much longer piece that we did for PwC as part of something that they distribute both internally and to some of their clients. The interesting fact about this video, it was very, very effective in its own right in terms of we thought it was great and the client thought it was great. But what really, really validated this video was the fact that within an hour of us distributing it out to their clients and employees, it had 387 downloads in the first hour. After a week, it had over 10,000 downloads for a research presentation. I think pretty admirable in terms of what something that is well put together, conveys a good message, can do, people want it. They're going to grasp, they're going to reach out for it. This is one example. We had similar success stories in these types of things with Lowe's, which was here with us last year. How these things can really, really impact your business and get your message out to not just people who you think might traditionally be interested in it, but to other people within the organization, and really have the power to align everybody's thinking around what your research findings are.